fuck out of here, boy. Get that weak shit out of here.
And there it is.
So Pyre is Supergiant's third game and the least known in their catalog. Kinda makes me wonder why. Did this game not get marketed as much? Was the word of mouth of its quality not there this time? Did people hear party-based sports game and immediately pieced out? After playing it myself, I can kinda see why. It combines and draws from genres that don't exactly come together too often, if not ever. Yeah, I'm not fooling you with the title. This game's a basketball game. It's also an RPG. And a visual novel? Yeah, this game is built different. It's like Transistor in that respect with how left field it is, although I found the hybrid gameplay to not be as awkward this time around. We'll get into that later though. For now, welcome to the downside, a place where a country called the Commonwealth banishes its criminals for all eternity. You play as an exiled, unnamed woman who's found struggling through a wasteland before being taken in by three masked figures. Headwind, a human nomad that's way too nice, Ruki, the talking dog that has a mustache for some reason, and Jodariel, a big demon who always looks like she wants to catch a fade. You stumble upon a book that reveals a sacred ritual game called the Rites that takes place all across the downside at certain times. Participating in these rites is apparently a way to get out of the downside, and the reason this band of misfits brought you on board is due to your ability to read the stars and know where the next rite is taking place. So now you're dubbed the Reader, rolling with this team called the Nightwings, participating in these rites, traveling all across the downside, and recruiting new members for the cause. All in all, this game is essentially
play for your freedom.
Let me tell you, if they were trying to make this place seem unappealing to be in, then they definitely did a bad job because almost every location in the downside is visually appealing. Once again, Gen Z flexes her hand-drawn art skills all over the damn place. Detailed character designs, beautiful vibrant backgrounds, pretty much every location in the game is eye-catching. Even that pit of Malith place that characters in the game hate so much. Play other graphic adventure games and you'll notice that they do much less. The only weak spot this time around are the visual novel parts where characters are just static with dialogue. I don't mind this format inherently if there's good voice acting or lots of different character poses that match the emotion of the dialogue. This game doesn't have either of that, unfortunately. Every character has like 3 drawings of them that are used in every situation. The drawings themselves aren't even that different, and for a dialogue heavy game like this, it can make things kinda dry. I do appreciate the hyperlinks though. Oftentimes I found myself lost on what the heck characters were referencing, but clicking on the highlighted text fills you in pretty quickly. The voice acting point is probably more of a personal preference since reading plain text can bore me pretty quickly. However, unlike the previous 2 games, I don't really see a reason why this game doesn't have voice acting. Were they trying to maintain a children's book aesthetic by having you voice the characters in your head yourself? Was it budgetary reasons? Who knows? All the characters mutter some foreign sounding shit from time to time, so obviously there was some type of voices in the studio. Speaking of which, Logan Cunningham once again is the main voice you're going to be hearing in this game as the Rites announcer.
Reader, dare you tamper with forbidden knowledge? So soon after your sentence into exile. 'Tis true what the book says. You can be free again. Perhaps not you yourself, but someone worthy of the privilege. You witness now the path toward salvation. You witness the rights.
Jesus Christ, how many voices can this man do? I didn't even know it was him until the credits. At this point, I should probably just assume that he's gonna have a main role in all of their games. Same with Darren Korb, who yes, once again, provides a bomb-ass soundtrack that perfectly matches the game's world and tone. This is probably his most eclectic work yet. The range of genres on this thing is pretty damn wide. Indie folk, prog rock, chamber pop, there's even some dope-ass hip-hop beats on here. I mean, you travel through a lot of different environments and face off against a colorful cast of characters, so the music being all over the place makes sense. The highlight track is definitely the one that plays over the liberation rites. Whenever Darren Korb and Ashley Barrett perform a duet, it's usually some good shit, and this track is no exception. So let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, this is a sports game, something Supergiant Games was really hush-hush about prior to release for some reason. The rights are the main form of gameplay here, and how it works is that it's a 3-on-3 contest where you have this orb in the middle that you have to put into the enemy team's pyre. Each time you do, it does damage to the pyre, making it smaller. The goal of the game is to reduce the enemy teams to 0 while also trying to defend your own. So yeah, basketball. Score in their hoop, don't let them score in yours. There are some key differences though. For one, whenever one of your people score, they get banished until someone else scores again. 2, only the person with the orb on your team can move while also sacrificing their attack and defenses. And 3, whenever you attack an enemy player, they get banished temporarily and sent back to their pyre. There's also the fantasy elements in that every character has different ways of navigating the field and attacking enemy players. This is also where the RPG stuff comes in, with your characters gaining experience that lead to new talents that make their abilities more practical. It's pretty light though, the level cap is like 5, the talent trees go up to 4, and there's only 4 stats in the game that don't vary much. They're heavily based on the character's race, so since Jodariel is a big demon, she does a lot of damage to a pyre, which is based on glory, but she's slow as shit, which is obviously based on quickness. Hope determines the amount of time a character is banished, and presence is the size of a character's aura, which banishes players that come in it. So yeah, that's the gist of things. If you ever played NBA Jam or Rocket League, all this shouldn't be that complicated. I understand the disappointment and not getting a proper RPG, but I'm actually glad that they kept that stuff to a minimal. This is very much about getting familiar with each character's movesets and reacting to them. Not being able to control all your characters at once feels awkward at first, since in actual basketball, your teammates move without the ball, but eventually you get used to it. It actually forces you to think a little bit more strategically on which characters to bring forth to score or to keep around your pyre for defense. I found every character in this game to be surprisingly fun to use, was drawn to the more speedy characters like Faye and Hedwyn in the beginning, until I realized how much of a beast characters like Volfred are. Let me tell you, his sapling ability thing saved me in the clutch more times than I can count. Also, the flying characters are just straight hacks. Everyone's kit is practical though, which is double important considering that you're going to be losing a bunch of them throughout the second half of the game. And no, I don't mean death, but instead these liberation rites that take place every other game. These matches, upon winning them, free one of your teammates from the downside, which means they can't be used in the rites anymore. Luckily, you have a choice on who you can send. Not everyone can be liberated though, so it's often a choice between, do you want to see a character free and happy, or do you want to keep them in the downside for their skills? Yes, these choices also affect the narrative, which I'll talk about in a bit, but I really do like how these choices heavily affect the outcome of the gameplay. It forces the player not to get too comfortable with a certain playstyle and experiment in an organic way. It's not like it hinders enjoyment too, since, like I said before, every character is useful. It does sting a bit if you grow attached to a character's character though, only to let them go. But yeah, going back to the rights, they're fun. If you play on the higher difficulties. Don't let this game fool you. The normal mode is actually the easy mode, because it is way too easy to roll past the enemy team into their pyre, especially with the flying characters. For whatever reason, the AI doesn't know how to deal with them. I turned on this Titan star halfway through my gameplay, which raises the difficulty. Tried rolling up to the enemy team's pyre this time, and it played out like... The behavior of the AI is night and day when you turn up the difficulty. They actually fucking try. They'll constantly try to banish you, they'll bring up all 3 of their players to score, they'll dodge everything you throw at them. They even do some strats where they'll throw you the orb knowing that you can't attack with it, kill you, and then take the orb. They become straight bullies, which forces you to think about how you're going to score on them. And yeah, it makes the game a lot more fun and interesting. Games become a fast-paced tug-of-war rather than the one-sided boring blowouts on normal. I'm convinced that all the people that said that the rights were too repetitive were probably playing on normal, which is where they fucked up. So yeah, if you haven't played this game before, play on heightened. It's where all the fun is at.
When the stars align, the rights shall come to bear.
So after a couple of rights, you meet Volfred Sandalwood, the important client Hedwyn mentions early in the game. You see, Volfred has a plan that involves taking down the Commonwealth. His gripe with the nation is that they're essentially too authoritarian and wishes to rebuild a society from the ground up that's more free. His plan involves freeing your teammates back into the Commonwealth, but you're never really given much insight into the plan beyond that. You constantly get news of your former teammates linking up with Volfred's agents on the other side though, which increases the success rate of the plan. Unfortunately, the news of Volfred's plan reaches the Archjustice of the Commonwealth, who's revealed to be the voice of the rights. Let's just say that he isn't too happy about you trying to break tradition.
You are nothing, reader. Nothing but a mindless simpleton. Your every action is a stain upon the legacy of the 8 scribes. The rights have been a long-held secret to keep out those such as you.
You also run into this big demon guy named Orlick, who used to be one of Volfred's teammates on the Nightwings way back. There's a lot of beef and baggage in that relationship that I don't have time to cover. Let's just say that they got issues that they need to work out. In the last Liberation Rite, Orlick and his true Nightwings are the last team you face though. After serving them up, you're given a final choice on who to send back. For whatever reason, the pool is accepting of anybody for this final liberation. At least for me, the choice was between myself, Volfred, or Orlick. I was trying to send Volfred back for the sake of the plan, but he relinquished it for me to go back instead. Shit, don't mind if I do. In the ending that I got, the Commonwealth was brought down by all of the liberated people that I sent back. A new nation called the Saurian Union was constructed in its place. So yeah, the plan worked out for me. Feel a little bad for leaving behind Volfred, Tiza, and Pamitha, but I'm sure they'll understand. It was for the greater good after all. But yeah, you'll notice that I said my ending, because holy hell, there's a lot of different possible endings that you can get depending on who you send back. I'm not just talking about the overarching story, but each individual character too. Every character gets an epilogue that changes depending on the decisions that you make throughout the game. The alternate endings aren't some quickly written up bullshit that doesn't make sense either. Each ending every character gets, you can totally see happening. Shit man, they didn't even have to make it that deep, but I'm glad they did. Adds another layer of replayability of an already good game. The game really takes its time in getting you comfortable and attached to your teammates. It's pretty slow in the beginning, and the wall of text can be off-putting, but I think it was necessary to get you to care about the cause later on. Every character's personalities are for the most part one note, but I didn't really mind since they're all pretty likable. Not to mention there's a surprising amount of detail in every character's backstory and motivations. Lots of long-standing histories between the characters that really come through in the dialogue. Not just on the team either, but with the other teams too, who you face a handful of times. There's always someone on your team that has some beef with the other team that gets fleshed out with each match. I thought it was pretty dope. It makes the rematches not as stale as they should be. Not to mention that the other teams are always having matches in the background that sometimes raise or lower their standings. So yeah, the world of this game is surprisingly really fleshed out. There's a lot of damn lore that the characters reference from time to time. Luckily, most of it is easy to understand. The parallels between the 8 scribes creating Commonwealth and your 8 exiles creating the Saurian Union doesn't take a fucking English degree to notice. If you ever feel lost in that stuff, the game even takes the liberty of putting a whole damn Bible in the middle of the wagon for the player to read at any time. Apparently the whole theme of the game is supposed to be about the nature of facing defeat and dealing with the consequences of it. I believe him, but unfortunately for me, that theme kinda rang hollow since my team went undefeated and never had to mourn over a loss. My own interpretation is that this game is about freedom and defining your own sense of it. When you're done with the campaign, there's also a versus mode where you can set up right matches against a buddy. Not only is every character and team available, but you can choose whatever talent you want with all the trinkets you picked up in the campaign. It seems like this would be fun with friends, but people don't come over my place like that, so I would have no way of knowing. Would have been sweet if this game had online matchmaking. Would have been more than happy to dunk on fools online.
Absolution.
So yeah, that's Pyre. Thoroughly enjoyed my time with this one. It's easily my favorite Supergiant game so far. The rich world, colorful cast of characters, and high stakes basketball are definitely more my speed. I highly recommend this game, although I don't know who I would recommend it to since it's not really like anything else. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about this one. Hades is up next, so until next time.